You are traveling down a road when it forks into two separate paths. Before one, an incredibly thin mime wearing a grinning mask in all black with striped limbs standing inside an enormous gift box. Before the other path, an ordinary looking girl with brown hair who appears shy but otherwise harmless. You see behind them that the mime's path leads to a restaurant, while the girl's path leads to a small town. Both of them have a hand outstretched in a welcoming manner. Which one do you choose? Which one do you choose? Charlotte Emily is one of the most important characters in Five Nights at Freddy's because she connects so much of the story's tissue together. This is despite her barely showing up in the games and not having much of a starring role in them. She also had the most interesting variations outside of the games. She could rival Freddy with how many different versions of Charlie there are. Well, if you include the puppet, that is. Now, covering Charlie is such a huge monumental task that I couldn't possibly do this on my own without missing something. Thankfully, I found this magical wooden box that sings, reports the news, and tells stories. He also knows his stuff about Five Nights at Freddy's. Wizards call this gizmo a radio. I call him TJ.
Hello everyone. I have this YouTube channel, TJ's Radio Show, where I have the persona of TJ, the best radio host in America. I really love Five Nights at Freddy's.
Quite the suave guy we got here. Now, where should we even begin with Charlie? I could begin with her history, but the problem is I would have to ask which Charlie's history. There are so many versions of her. The games, the Silver Eyes trilogy, Fazbear's Frights, and the movies. Don't like one version of Charlie? Here, try another. A really cool thing about Five Nights at Freddy's is that despite having a multiverse that all share things with each other, they don't cross over. So you can describe something about one Charlie and most fans will know who you're talking about. That one Charlie who became a clown mime and later a janky bear? Oh, that's Charlie from the games. That Charlie who grew up and had an imposter pretending to be her? Oh, that's the Charlie from the Silver Eyes trilogy. That one Charlie who was too obsessed with the marionette who saved a kid before dying? Oh, that's Charlotte from the movies. In a way, each version of Charlie is the ambassador of what's different about their separate universes.
Funnily enough, technically speaking, there's two Charlies in the Silver Eyes trilogy alone. There's the real Charlie, the kid with the soul, and then there's the one we follow, which is a robot infected by Henry's agony given life.
Ah, good point. And it's really weird how outside of the games, Charlie is a really prominent character, while in the games, not so much. Outside of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the game, she barely showed up, which is sad because she was supposed to be the focus character of the games. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 gave her some more importance and story relevance, but after that she was dropped off the face of the map until Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator. Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator? Whatever. I mean, there was the box at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, and man oh man, do I regret looking up theories of what could have been in the box. The most innocent theory is that it was the puppet's carrying case, while the most disturbing theory is that the deceased body of Charlie herself was in there. I don't get why some people think that Scott Cawthon would be diabolical enough to surprise us all with the body of a deceased child once we open the box. As gruesome as Five Nights at Freddy's lore can be, I'd like to think that Scott isn't a maniac who'd scare us like that.
On that note, I want to talk a little bit more about the box. It's a bit of a misconception that Scott forgot what was in the box. The truth is, from what he implied, it was more like he just came up with a new story, you know? He had a new idea because his old version of the story, when he first made FNAF 4, wasn't great, so he just changed it and the box became a relic of an older version of the lore. That's how I read the Taco interview thing.
Gotta admit, I was one of the people who thought Scott just forgot what was in the box. Yeah, that's egg on my face. But the first time Charlie appeared in FNAF was in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, during the cutscenes in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Yeah, Charlie wasn't actually in FNAF 1, but during the final cutscene, that's clearly the stage and dining hall from the first game's location. The lore has always tried to establish that Charlie had been in nearly every location back when she was super duper important. The actual first time she appeared and did anything was in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 game. If you hadn't noticed by now, I'm going to be using Charlie and Puppet interchangeably. Sorry if that causes any confusion. I hate to say this, but Charlie as the puppet didn't make a good first impression in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Don't get me wrong, I like Puppet's design and theme, but it was annoying to deal with. It wasn't enough for us to deal with an army of animatronics heading our way and anticipate when to put on the mask. No, we also gotta deal with a constantly dwindling timer we have to take off our only source of protection to reset. Oops, I mean we gotta constantly wind up a music box to make sure whatever's in the that giant gift box doesn't wake up. This kinda takes the wind out of the sails of the puppet, being able to keep it at bay just by winding the music box even a little. All throughout the game, this thing was hyped as the end-all be-all of the animatronics you face. It's one of the easiest animatronics to manage, and the only reason you might set it loose is that you get a bad hand with a few bots showing up at your desk one after another when you desperately need to wind that music box. I never died once to the puppet in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I've been got more by Foxy and Balloon Boy. Where Charlie really shines is in the death minigames, which explains why this game is so difficult. It's during these minigames that you learn Charlie's story, though what's funny is that we are actually not following Charlie's story. If you're wondering how Charlie got her name, it's because it's a reference to the original lore before it got updated. During the Take Cake to Children game, the garbled voice, presumably from the puppet, spells "save him," as we watch a child outside turn gray after an encounter with a purple sprite. This is widely accepted as the puppet's origin, although some things had to be updated in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria simulator. We're going to be using the up-to-date version of the lore just so everyone, including TJ and I, are on the same page.
It's rather funny remembering the time before Pizza Sim. Like, before that game, I didn't even see anyone considering the idea Charlie could be connected to the puppet. But now, it's basically one of the tenets of the lore. It's just fascinating to me that such a core part was a fairly late addition.
Oh, you'd be surprised how many of the most iconic things in our pop culture were made as late additions and retcons to already established lore. Sith bleeding their lightsabers to make them red was not first introduced until 2016, decades after Star Wars started, and that was a retcon to how they were originally created. But I love the story the death minigames tell and how they tell it. The story is divided into 4 minigames and reveals the origin of both the puppet and purple guy. I'm going to try my best to tell the story of the minigames in what I believe to be the correct order. Keep in mind these minigames are purposely designed to be vague, and 2 of them could have happened at any time. It starts with Freddy taking cake to children, as a lone child cries outside. This is Charlotte Emily outside of Fredbear's family diner. After a while, a car pulls up and a purple man steps out. It was on this day that Charlotte Emily, outside of her father's restaurant, died. Sometime later, Foxy is running towards a group of children inside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But one night, a strange man watches off to the side as Foxy runs off. He rushes into a room full of dead kids. This is a simplified version of how the missing children incident started. After some time, or maybe while Fredbear's was still open, the puppet, now possessed by Charlie, starts putting the deceased children into the... Hold up, time out. TJ, why is the puppet putting the dead children inside the animatronics? Wasn't it William Afton who put them in the animatronics? These could be the withered animatronics, which would mean this was happening at Fredbear's, but these can't be the withers because we clearly see in the final cutscene Puppet overlooking the FNAF 1 animatronics, but the FNAF 1 bots weren't at Fredbear's, and the withers look way too different to be the same animatronics, but some believe they are the same. But then why would they be modeled completely differently if they were supposed to be? Which mean they can't be, but Puppet then couldn't because Afton then couldn't, they couldn't. Ah! TJ, my feeble mind, I'm coming apart. Oh dear mother of God, I'm coming apart.
I got nothing, bro. I'm sorry. That bit was totally a retcon. I think Scott was just planning something very different when he made FNAF 2. I think the best explanation I can think of is that William did stuff them, and Charlotte did, but Charlotte, did something else that caused the animatronics to be haunted. That doesn't really make sense with how it's depicted elsewhere, but, I think it might be, the DCI. You know how, there's 2 killing sprees now, but if Scott were rebooting, he would probably just, rewrite the DCI out of the story.
Okay, I think I'll be alright now. So, in other words, what you're saying is, yeah, we got nothing. You know, it's pretty bad when even my FNAF experts that I rely on while making these videos just look at me and shrug their shoulders. I do like your theory, though, about how this could be depicting the MCI. You know what, let's not finish explaining the death minigames because I'm pretty sure the Save Them minigame takes place right before Night 6 and just gives context for Phone Guy's phone call.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself. Okay, good night and good luck.
If there's any wish I have for future FNAF games, it's a little bit more of that crazy world building while still leaving some details vague just to expand on. That was something I loved in Secret of the Mimic.
Oh man, I love the world building in Secret of the Mimic. Big Top Pringles, man, was the best part of the lore building and just environmental storytelling of that game, besides maybe Jackie. I mean, Big Top Pringles, man, was a chore to play his section, but I mean, he was like the best animatronic in that game. You can't convince me otherwise. But the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 game really highlights an interesting technique Scott Cawthon uses when writing his stories. It's a habit that would be impossible for nearly all other writers to pull off. He puts more focus on secondary and background characters than he does on his protagonist. By all accounts, this should not work, because it's the antithesis of how you should write a story. Normally, a story makes all the main characters interesting because they serve as the vehicle guiding the audience through their fictional world. The background characters usually are just there to fill up the world and make it feel lived in, or serve as a body count depending on the story. But here comes Scott Cawthon, who does the polar opposite, and it somehow works. We know more about his background characters than we do the ones we actually play as. We don't even know who we play as in most of the games Scott Cawthon made himself. Many of us believe we play as Michael Afton in all the games and that he's the older brother in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, but the only game that confirms we play as Michael is Sister Location. He could have used aliases in FNAF 1, 2, and 3, but even if Michael was the main character, what all do we know about him? Outside of maybe bullying his older brother, if he was the older brother in FNAF 4, getting scooped by Baby and wanting to find his father William Afton, what do we really know about Michael Afton or any of the potential characters we could have played as in Scott's Five Nights at Freddy's games? Even when the torch was passed to Steel Wool, Help Wanted 1 and 2 still had unnamed protagonists we knew little to nothing about. Providing incredibly rich background characters makes the world of Five Nights at Freddy's feel more lived in than other games. These background characters don't revolve around the main character and have their own things going on. This is most likely what has driven us to find out everything that goes on in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is where the lore around Charlie becomes most interesting because this is where her story was supposed to end. The puppet was intended to be decommissioned just like the rest of the toy animatronics. It even has a phantom covered in soot and ash that attacks you, like the rest of the phantoms, to make that point clear. However, allow me to introduce you to Cam 8, or Cam 8 when the puppet is in frame. Well damn, is this not the image that best represents all of Five Nights at Freddy's, TJ? You got the puppet in a haunted broken down pizzeria, and there's a string of paper children going across it. Those paper children represent all of William Afton's victims, and how Charlie tried to do something about them. The puppet is looking over at a pile of presents, representing the prize corner, Puppet's gift box, and the Give Gifts Give Life minigame. The drawings show the toy animatronics which the puppet was a part of. Chica's head gives us some nice FNAF 1 representation, while possibly being another Give Gifts Give Life reference. There's even another puppet mask looking over at the gifts, just to hammer the point home. although that could be just another crappy cosplay. What's crazy about Cam 8 is that it was all an accident. The puppet in it is the model from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, instead of the soot-covered model Scott Cawthon had ready to go. The reflection on the floor was caused by Scott Cawthon forgetting to turn off ray tracing on the floor. The puppet was not supposed to be here, yet these mistakes gave the puppet new life for the story as well as an amazing hardcore image.
Another interesting bit of trivia is the fact that Phantom Mangle also has a reflection, which further gives credence to the idea that reflections aren't really meant to be important.
Huh, I didn't even notice that Phantom Mangle had a reflection. Weird. To further prove that the puppet's not supposed to be here, the Happiest Day minigame has Charlie ascending to heaven with the rest of the kids. Wait a minute, so did Charlie come back down from heaven after putting in all that work to ascend everyone, including herself, and somehow find a way to repossess the puppet again? Is that even? How would that even?
Oh, not this again. Hare! It's just an image, don't let it get to you. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I feel like a honeysuckle dipped in rainbows.
You're all twitchy.
Perfectly normal. I'm good. You're good. We're all good here now. How are you doing? Hey, where are you going? After Five Nights at Freddy's 3, Charlie kind of fell off the map for a while, not appearing in 4 or sister location. I mean, there was the box in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, but there's no way to prove that belonged to the puppet. Nightmare Inn doesn't count because it's neither Charlie nor the puppet. No, Charlie didn't show up in the games until Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, where things got really confusing. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator is the most confusing when it comes to Charlie's story. Ironic given this was going to be the last game of the series, but I think there were several factors into why everything went so muddled. The first was that this was one of the 2 tie-in games for the Silver Eyes trilogy, despite that trilogy having nothing to do with the games. Another was that Scott was hastily tying up every loose end he could, and it feels like this game was rushed out the door too. The way this game was developed caused a lot of things to be rushed in the most confusing way without any kind of satisfying explanation. Mistakes were made in Pizzeria Simulator, one of them with Lefty. See, Lefty is a janky, creepy recolor of Rockstar Freddy, whose big twist is that he's housing the puppet inside him. Yes, the very puppet who Charlie is possessing. She was contained inside of Lefty by our Father of the Year, Henry. Except he might not have captured his daughter after all. There are these rare pre-game screens you can get, and one of them just happens to feature Lefty. It was this image that first tipped us off that the puppet was inside. However, if you look closely at that exposed arm, that's not the puppet from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. That is clearly the arm of a security puppet, which means one of 2 things. Either Scott Cawthon put the wrong model inside of Lefty, or Henry believed he could put any puppet inside of Lefty and Charlie would just be sucked in because, puppet? Given what happened with Five Nights at Freddy's 3, you'd think this goof would have led to extending Charlie's story even further. This time, unfortunately, Scott was determined to end the series, so no. That was meant to be the puppet from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. As morbid as it would have been for Henry to have gone insane and started shoving security puppets into every bear he could find, that did not happen. The strangest thing is that a sad story about Henry putting any puppet he could get his hands on into Lefty in a desperate but failed attempt to reconnect with his daughter would have made more sense. According to Five Nights at Freddy's 3, Charlie helped all the MCI kids cross over before crossing over herself. She should be up in heaven, not still possessing the puppet. As sad as the revelation in Pizza Sim is, it's not the worst thing to happen to Charlie in the games. Actually, she got off lucky because while all the other scrap animatronics burned, we never see it happen to Lefty. So Charlie actually got an ambiguous ending in Pizza Sim, which is the happiest ending out of everyone.
I think us not seeing Lefty is just because players are supposed to fully realize that Charlie was in Lefty on a replay, and if you showed just the puppet, it would just make things a little bit more confusing. I think Charlie did just burn with everyone else, and I do think that's just meant to be a happy ending in canon.
Well, considering Charlie got sent to heaven twice, wait, would that mean that she would go to double heaven? Or when she arrives at the pearly gates this time, they'd give her a hot fudge sundae for making 2 trips. I don't know. Point is that, yeah, I guess she did get the best ending. And that's why they didn't show her, because, a burning Puppet and Lefty kinda would sour that good feeling. But Charlie, or more accurately the Puppet, didn't appear again canonically in the series until Security Breach. Yes, Puppet appeared in Ultimate Custom Night, Help Wanted, and Help Wanted 2, but the puppets in those 3 games were not really Charlie or even real. In Security Breach, we are introduced to the Tangle, a melted together mess of animatronics. One of the animatronics fused to the Tangle is the Puppet. I'm not upset, just disappointed. It was bad enough to find out the Pizza Sim restaurant didn't completely burn down. It was bad enough to find out that Molten Freddy and Circus Baby weren't wiped out by the fire. But to find out the Puppet got literally tangled up in this mess, no pun intended, felt like whoever came up with it tried to create the most soul-crushing reveal ever.
Hare, you might want to take a closer look at Tangle.
I mean, what was wrong with leaving Charlie's fate up to our imaginations? With how Tangle was formed, we shouldn't even be able to see the Puppet's mask like this. Since the Puppet was inside Lefty when he got absorbed, it should have goopified Puppet into a black and white substance beyond any kind of recognition. Is this the legacy we want Charlie to have? Being part of a wad of burnt spaghetti and tarred chewing gum?
Hare, Puppet's mask doesn't have the tear marks anymore, and its eyes are not lit up. Charlie is no longer part of the Puppet, and that means she was never a part of Tangle.
Huh? Hold on, let me check. Let's just go over here. So turn around now so I can see the Puppet mask. Oh, well, what do you know? I guess Charlie did get her happy ending and ascended. I mean, it sucks that the Puppet is still a part of this thing, but we'll take what we can get. I'd like to think this means that in the end, Charlie did succeed in everything she set out to do as the Puppet. And her father Henry did succeed in freeing her. I mean, I still don't like Henry or how the Puppet itself ended up, but all's well that ends well. Normally, this is where I would give my final word on Charlie before calling you all my shining stars for making it this far, but I'm gonna give TJ the floor for this video's finale since I had a blast making this video with him. Don't worry, we'll be back for part 2 of this guide to Charlie, covering her appearances outside the games, but for now, sing us a tune, you're the magic music box man.
I would be interested in a new continuity that follows a vaguely similar version of the game story, but reimagining or expanding on details. I don't really want us to go in full detail with the classic era because, I think it's best left as it is, largely ambiguous. But I would be interested in, a new version that gave, Secret of the Mimic style detail and storytelling to all the characters, including Charlie. Thanks for having me in this video, Hare. I've been going through a lot, but this was nice.